Yu-Gi-Oh is currently in yet another Tier 0 format, and it's the most expensive the game has been in years. With the average cost of top decks in the recent Team YCS Las Vegas being around $1,000, it's no surprise that many people, myself included, are pretty done with the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! And that sucks because I love the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! I love the people that I've met through the game, and it makes me very sad to consider leaving a hobby I invested a lot of time and money into behind. But what are we supposed to do? In order to be competitive in the current format, you have to basically shell out around $1,200 for the best deck in the room. And if you want to play the second best deck, it's still going to run you about $700, which is better than $12, but it's still insanely expensive. And this is all sort of just assuming that you want to play against the fire deck, because that's basically all you're going to be playing against. And it's a very big stray from what Yu-Gi-Oh has been for the past, I don't know, half a decade. So it may just not be up your alley. So what can we do as players? Well, that's what I want to talk about today. What options do you as a Yu-Gi-Oh player have if you're still looking to go to locals, have fun, meet some new people, and slam some cards on a table? Now, if you actually like fire decks, despite the current high expense of Snake Eyes, it is actually quite feasible to build a budget version of Snake Eye. By supplementing in some Fire King cards and playing some cheaper bonfire alternatives, you can build a budget Fire King Snake Eye list for, at the time of recording, around $350. And this is for a list that Professional Player Pack showed off in this video right here and claimed to actually be quite good. And if you're being really budget, you can cut the SP Little Knight to remove about $120, $130 from the deck's cost, bringing you about $200 for the entire deck. There are also other variants that saw play before the release of Poplar and Promethean Princess that you could try that are significantly less expensive, such as Dogmatic Fire King Snake Eye and Tri-Brigade Fire King Snake Eye. I will acknowledge that $350 isn't exactly budget for most people, and certainly not compared to other TCGs like Pokemon or Digimon, but if you really want to play a version of the Tier 0 deck and be somewhat competitive, and also be a little bit more resilient to getting hit on the ban list due to not playing some of those big Age of Overlord staples in the deck, these are great options. With a Tier 0 deck in the format, it means on average you'll be playing against that deck, especially if you're going to higher tiered events. So if you're trying to make Nationals or YCS runs on a budget, or you're going to a very highly competitive locals, making an anti-meta call may just be the right move. We saw YugiTuber Slim yugioh and his team do this at Team YCS Las Vegas, and they made quite a deep run with 2 players on anti-meta stun and another player on U-Bell. Because of Fire Deck's affinity to playing out of the graveyard with cards like Wanted, Poplar, Promethean Princess, Flamberge, Oak, Blazing Phoenix, and any of the Fire King stuff, being able to run a deck that plays well with or under Dimension Shifter is huge. And being able to floodgate your opponent out of playing the game consistently is even bigger. If you have a deck that has consistent access to meaningful anti-meta stun cards, or ones that can end your opponent's turn in a single go, it's a worthwhile consideration. I have friends that are even playing decks like Weather Painters right now because of their ability to play under cards like Dimension Shifter and Dimension Fissure. GOTY is potentially worth playing pure because of its ability to play under Dimension Shifter. It's not great, but it hurts your opponent more than it hurts you. Additionally, runic variants are wonderful this format due to the fact that runic spells will mill out your opponent's deck into the banishment, leading to potentially outing some of the big cards that they can't recur quickly and preventing them from playing the game. You really haven't lived until you've runic tipped Banish a Flamberge off the top. Playing Rogue is different from just playing anti-meta. Some people might consider something like anti-meta stun or Weather Painters or runic variants Rogue, but I think that these are calculated meta calls you can make to try and out a Tier 0 deck with its Achilles heel. When I say play Rogue, I mean literally just play a deck that you enjoy. Play something that is cool, that makes you happy. Now this is entirely dependent on you and how you get enjoyment out of playing this game. I could get my skull crushed week in and week out, but if I'm playing Makonko, I'm having a great time. But that might not be the case for you. Maybe you just want to play Plunder Patrol, or Aramage, or Cubics even. If that's the case, look around in your local area and see if there's an OTS that hosts a Rogue Night, officially known as Heart of the Underdog. These are officially sanctioned tournaments where top tier decks and staples are banned, forcing people to get creative with different decks and staples. If none of your locals around you run this type of tournament, go ahead and recommend it to them. The OTS I go to hosts one every single Wednesday night, and we can have anywhere from 10 to 16 people playing on a given night, which is pretty solid for an alt format tournament in my area. In fact, it's bigger than some advanced locals I've seen in my area. Rogue Night is the only locals that I go to consistently because you get to see such a wide variety of decks, and they're always suboptimal due to staple bans or archetype hits. But people figure it out and they make it work. It is also a format that can help you escape some of the more unfun parts of this game. My local says Dimension Shifter banned, and I can safely play any deck that would normally fold like a chair to that card. Rogue Night has also encouraged me to pick back up some decks that I previously previously had interest in, but dropped for one reason or another. I've taken Invoke Dogmatica Brews, Nouvelle, and Makonko before, and I'm currently eyeing Plunder Patrol, Valence, and Drytron as fun picks to take in future nights. It's likely if you've ever considered taking a step back from Yu-Gi-Oh! Or have seen people complain about the game, you've probably seen someone say, play Edison, or play NR format. And while yeah, these are not the same as modern Yu-Gi-Oh! Clearly, and thus may not feel like a real alternative to the fast-paced, interactive game of modern Yu-Gi-Oh!, they're still wonderful variants of this game that encourage a wide variety of different skills. Edison is an easy alternative to modern Yu-Gi-Oh! To pick up, as it is nowhere near as slow as GOAT format, but it also isn't at a breakneck speed like formats post-Duelist Alliance. These older or alternative formats are perfect alternatives to modern day Yu-Gi-Oh! Because they're still fundamentally Yu-Gi-Oh! And they're also so much cheaper. You can build an Edison Blackwing deck for a fraction of a modern day Yu-Gi-Oh! Deck. The only things that are expensive in these formats are specific cards that haven't been reprinted in a long time. And it's easy to find decks that do not even play these cards or just play one or two. And honestly, when an entire Edison deck costs $50, it's a lot easier to stomach spending $8 on an Elemental Hero Absolute Zero. There are also more historic formats out there than GOAT or Edison. A particular favorite of mine recently with a growing player base in my community is Meadowlands. This is the YCS that happened the week before Tachyon Galaxy released in the TCG, bringing Dragon Rulers to the game. I've coined it the Edison format of the Zexal era, as it is incredibly diverse with lots of cool decks like Xyz Infinity, Karakuri, Six Samurai, and Dark World. And as the format is getting tested more and having more eyes on it, more is being discovered and the format is being developed further. But that's not the only historic format that sees play. We have other cool formats like Clown, Tengu Plan, Hat, Toss, Rate, and more. The best thing is that these formats are all officially supported by Konami, unlike a lot of other alternative formats. If you have enough interest at your locals, you can actually get an official Time Wizard format tournament run regularly at your OTS. You can also get pods of that format firing at YCSs if you have a group of 8 people. Now for fan-run alt formats, there are lots of thriving communities for formats such as NR format, which is a Master Duel alt format where you can only use normal and rare cards. Common Charity, while technically an official Konami format, has a thriving community for it despite the lack of Konami support for it as of late. Domain is an alternative to Konami's official Deckmaster format, which provides Yu-Gi-Oh! An equivalent to Magic the Gathering Commander. There's also my own alternative to Domain format called Covington format, which is also a Commander style format, but with less deck restrictions than the ones in Domain. There really are plenty of ways to still engage with Yu-Gi-Oh! Outside of the advanced format, and you may even find that you like these formats better than the official one. So this is what this has all led to. I've tried to keep my recommendations within the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! While still providing alternatives so we can still engage with this game that we love. But this video is still titled, You Should Quit Yu-Gi-Oh! So what does quitting look like? I mean, you could just sell off your collection and get into fishing or something, and that's totally valid, and if you want to do that, go for it. But what if you still want to play cards, and you want to go to locals, and you want to hang out with friends and shuffle up your deck? Well, luckily, this might be the best time ever to get into a new trading card game. We have Pokemon, Magic the Gathering, Digimon, One Piece, Lorcana, Star Wars Unlimited, and many more games that are basically at their prime. Pokemon is maybe the cheapest game to get into right now, period. You can get a top tier deck for about $50 right now, and with Pokemon's printing structure, that will probably be the case forever. Magic the Gathering Standard is an expensive format, but Commander Nights with friends using just structure decks is an incredible way to have a social TCG experience that is just absolutely a blast. Digimon has to have one of the most interesting resource systems I've ever seen in a game, and it's cheap, and it's only gotten more fun and more accessible with time. One Piece is at an incredible place right now, due to being built around an incredibly popular IP. It recently saw a spike in average deck prices, but compared to the average Yu-Gi-Oh! Deck, it is significantly cheaper to buy the most expensive One Piece deck by comparison. And from what I've been told, it should ease up over time as card distribution increases, but don't quote me on that. I know nothing about Lorcana or the brand new Star Wars Unlimited game, but I've heard very good things about both of them, and they seem worth trying out if the game appeals to you either in gameplay or in IP. Finally, you know I gotta mention my favorite card game of all time, Elestrals, made by the Pokemon YouTuber A-Drive. I said Digimon has one of the most interesting resource systems I've ever seen in a game. Well, Elestrals has the most interesting resource system I've ever seen in a game. It wonderfully mixes the concepts of life and mana into a system that makes every game feel like you're fighting tooth and nail to the finish in a wonderful way. Elestrals has officially been released with plans to get into local game stores and big box stores within the upcoming year. Very exciting stuff. Anyway, enough gushing about my boys Hydrake and Nimbug. The overall TCG space is unlike ever before. There are more games, they are more interesting, they have more support, and it doesn't look like it's slowing down. To top it all off, any game that isn't exactly Yu-Gi-Oh! Can be played competitively without dropping a month's rent on a deck for that format. Yu-Gi-Oh! Is an incredible game, but there are lots of ways to engage with it that don't involve taking out a loan to play in the most recent format. But if you're looking to move on or are open to paying less money to engage with a fun TCG, check out some other games. They're worth your time and your money, and I promise there are plenty of communities out there that would love to have you and teach you about their favorite TCG. So quit playing Yu-Gi-Oh! Whatever that looks like. Quit playing Tier 0, quit playing Advanced, or quit playing altogether. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed what you saw today, subscribe. I've got other videos like this coming in the future. And if you're interested in some gameplay of my favorite game, Elestrals, I've got a channel that I help run that I'll have linked in the description. Thanks. Bye.